It can be tricky working with contractors as a new investor. So I just wanted to share a couple mistakes that I've made working with contractors so that you don't have to make them yourself. And if you're new to the channel, my name is Justin Wrong and I've helped hundreds of people make money in real estate. The first mistake is choosing the cheapest bid. And this is actually a mistake I see a lot of investors make. But just know that if you're gonna be bidding out your project, so like you buy a new house that you wanna flip and you bring out contractors to get bids on the property. If you don't know what a bid is, it's basically like where a contractor gives you an estimate of like how much this is all gonna cost. And I just wanna let you know that just because you see a bid that's the cheapest, does not mean that it's the best. I don't care, like it doesn't mean that you're gonna have the best experience with this contractor on this particular project, just means that it's the cheapest. And it might not actually end up being the cheapest because you might have a contractor that upcharges you, or I don't even know what the name is, but it's like where they find other little things to nitpick down the road, which they knew of at the very beginning, but they found a reason to say like, hey, no, like we're gonna charge you an extra $3,000 for this. That's why like a lot of contractors will do that and you have to be aware. So just know that just because you have an initial bid that's cheap, doesn't mean it's the best. And I wanna give you kind of an example of like a story of kind of what happened to me because I have failed. And I'm sharing this failure with you so that you don't fail. But basically there was one time I was deciding between 3 contractors. There was a project for like $35,000, a bid for like $34,000, and there was a bid for like $29,000. I was like, whoa, like why is this so much cheaper? And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna work with you. Like obviously I'm gonna work with you. It's the cheapest. And I actually spent it up more than the $35,000 at the very end. And there's a few reasons for that. Like I'm not name shaming anyone, but like it was definitely my choice, and the reason for the failure is like I chose him. But it was the fact that like, it was a contractor that wasn't super trustworthy. And I really wouldn't have known that going forward. I maybe should have been wary, knowing that there are 2 bids. Like, why are these 2 bids for the same project at $35,000? Why is there 1 bid at $29,000? Like, what's the difference? And sometimes you do get good deals like that, like if you have a good contractor, but just be wary. Just be aware that it might not be the best bid. And you might want to ask a little bit more questions about like, are you sure you can do everything? Like, what does your bid entail? Like, does it include the materials? Or is it just labor? Like, what are we talking about? Because like with any bid that you get, like someone has to pay for the materials and someone has to pay for the labor. And some contractors, you have to be very clear with them like what you want in the bid. Some contractors will only give you a bid for like just the labor, and some contractors will give you the bid for like everything. Like here's what everything costs, like with the materials. That was a mistake I made because I ended up paying so much more by choosing the lowest initial bid. There's so many reasons. I don't know how in depth I want to go into this, but yeah, with these contractors, like they weren't really good with communication. So it was hard to communicate with them during projects, and especially hard because I was virtual. So I couldn't even go to my properties. And for this particular project, I ended up actually flying to California to check it out because I was just so concerned. Like there was, for a time, and I let this go on a little long, there was like 2-3 weeks of like zero communication. I was reaching out via text, phone, email, Facebook, Instagram. Like I was reaching out everywhere. And I was like, I thought he died. I was like, where did this contractor go? And he just wasn't responding. And I was like, wow, like it was really bad. It ruined the timeline. And like, there's a couple other things I will say, but like if you get a really, really cheap bid compared to your other bids, and I would always recommend for you to get like multiple bids. Don't just get one, because if a contractor finds out they're the only person giving you a bid, they're gonna give you a high bid. But if you tell them like, hey, I'm getting multiple bids on this, like they're gonna stay honest, they're gonna stay competitive because they want you to choose them. So get multiple bids. But that was a mistake I made, is like if I were to go back and I would see that cheap bid, I definitely would have started asking more questions. I would have been like, hey, like what does this exactly entail? Like, are you still able to complete this in the same timeline that we kind of discussed? Like tell me why this is so cheap. Like without saying that, I'm gonna be asking questions to kind of prod at him. So that's a mistake that I made. I don't want you to make that same mistake. The second mistake I made was choosing a contractor that didn't have the time to actually commit to the project. And you'll run into this a lot, because what I found is that a lot of contractors, they're really good at what they do. They're really good technical experts. Like they know how to fix stuff. However, they're often really bad business people. Like they're really bad at communicating generally, and they're bad at like being upfront and honest with you, like when they can't take any more. So I found this with a lot of contractors actually, where I'll ask them like, hey, like, can you commit to this project? Are you good with this? And after failing and choosing certain contractors for a project and realizing like why haven't they started this project? Or like, why are they never at this property? Like when I'm doing the project management of like going out to these properties and checking on them, like I'll call them like, where are you? Like I thought you were supposed to be working on this project. Like I thought this was your main project. And then later on, I'd find out like, oh, they have like 3-4 other projects going on. It's not to say that like it's a bad thing, but if they didn't have the systems in place to like have multiple crews to work on multiple projects at the same time, then other projects probably will take priority over yours unless you somehow get them like into gear and like kick them into gear. And so that was hard for me to realize. I was like, wow, like he could have been honest for me from the start, but at the same time, I realized it was completely my fault because I didn't ask the question of like, hey, like how busy are you? How many projects do you have going on? How many crews do you have? What's your capacity of how many projects you can actually take while working on multiple at the same time. Like, I totally could have asked all these questions and I didn't. And now I do. Now every time I have contractors come out, I don't do it anymore, but the project manager I have, the multiple ones I do, they'll ask. I'll make sure they ask, like, hey, make sure this person can actually commit. Like, ask them these questions that I just said and get a feel of like, one, they could say something just to get the deal, like just for you to choose them. So like, I also tell my project managers, like, hey, make sure you understand, like, if they're lying to you, like, try to get a real good sense of what they got going on and if they can truly commit, if they can start right away. Because for example, if you pick a contractor and you expected them to start now, like tomorrow, but they have all these projects going on, they didn't have enough crews to work on multiple projects, and they're like, I can only start next month. Well, depending on how you bought the home, I buy my home with hard money and private money where I have to pay interest every single month most times. And oftentimes all my interest payments are like $1,000 a month. And so if they can't work and start the project for a month, like I just lost $1,000 just for nothing. Like I could have chosen a different contractor that maybe was like $500 more on the bid, but cheaper overall because I know that they could start right away. So you have to take these things into consideration. And honestly, this is stuff that you learn through experience. And even if I'm telling you this, I suspect a lot of you will still make the same mistake, to be honest. Like I suspect you'll hear this, and then by the time you actually have contractors, you might make the same mistake I did. So I'm trying to warn you, like just a heads up. This is stuff that happens, stuff I've went through. And that was the second big mistake I made. The third mistake I made working with contractors is paying before the work was actually done. Now, to you, it might sound stupid of like, why would you do that? But I did. I don't know. I did it. I just thought that's kind of how it worked. And it's not necessarily like I paid the whole project up front. Like I didn't do that, but I would pay in increments still. So like at first, and this is kind of with the contractors I had some type of rapport built with, where I'd be like, okay, like let me pay you the $5,000 startup check, just so you can buy the materials to do all your work. Not only the demo, but like start to buy the materials for like whatever's next. And so I would do that. And then once they did that and they used up the money for that, and once I saw the progress was done, I'd pay them the next check. But by doing that, I realized that they were always ahead of me. So, and then they had the money first, they did the work. So there was this one time where I was doing this process with this particular contractor. It was actually the same bad contractor in my first example today, but it was one particular contractor, the same process. I paid for the starting check, the startup cost, and they bought stuff, they did work. I paid the next one, did work. And the next check I paid, then that's when the communication stopped. And I was like, okay, like hold on. I just paid you like a $5,000 check and you just stopped talking to me. And I was like, crap, I just got scammed. I was like, oh shoot. Over time, actually, I realized he did enough work to justify all the stuff I paid him. So like he was ahead, even though I paid him first. Here's how it worked, just so you can understand. But like I pay him $5,000, he do $5,000 work. I paid him $5,000, and then this time he did like $10,000 of work. And then I paid him the next $10,000, and that's when communication stopped. So overall, like he did the work that I paid him for, but I was just really stressed because I didn't know he did everything because I was virtual. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. And at that time, I didn't even have a project manager. That's really when I learned that I need a project manager being virtual. So that sucked. But that was a learning experience of like now, especially if there's no trust built with a contractor yet, like I'm not paying you first. Like you do the work, then I pay you. I'll pay for materials. Like I'll pay for the stuff, and like I'll pay them for labor, but I won't pay for the labor before they actually do it. I'm good paying for the materials like the granite countertops, whatever they need to install. But that labor, like once it's done, that's when I pay them. And I highly suggest for you to kind of take a similar approach. Maybe with contractors that you eventually trust, you can kind of like be more lenient, but just realize when you are more lenient, like it gives you an opportunity to be scammed. Please learn from my mistakes. Like contractors can be kind of tricky. And if you have a personality like mine, which is generally kind of like cool, chill, calm, nice, friendly, contractors can eat you up. And I've tried my best to be stern working with them, and I've been pretty good at it, but I've realized I'm like, wow, like, you have to be on top of them. Like there's a different type of persona or ego that comes in working with a lot of these contractors. And something I just realized over time, it's a different industry. That itself, project management, is different than the rest of flipping houses. I just want you to realize this from my mistakes that I've made so far so that you don't have to go through those same like headaches that I had to go through. And also, if you want help to grow a real estate business, click on the link in the description below for a free strategy session. So, peace.